Welcome to another episode of Six Figure Secrets for Fractional Experts. My name's Bradley Jacobs. I'm your host. Today, I'm joined by Chris Ortega. Chris brings 2 decades of finance experience and then nearly 3 years ago started his own business called Fresh FP&A. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, same here. So give us the quick TLDR. What does Fresh FP&A do?
Yeah, so we provide fractional CFO and advisory services to small to medium-sized businesses that are seeking financial clarity and confidence to grow their business. We serve software, technology, retail, e-commerce, pharma, and professional services companies. And our target revenue size is going to be somewhere between $1 and about $70 million. And we also are global, so we work with businesses in the Americas, in Europe, and also in Asia Pacific.
Awesome. All right. So let's take us back 3 years ago. You're working in, full time, have a full time job, like a lot of people listening, and I went through as well. You made the transition. Talk to me about that point of transitioning, leaving your full time job, starting this company.
Yeah, so I think my background is a little bit different because I was doing advisory and helping small to medium sized business as a side hustle. So I had a full-time job and I was doing this on the side, helping with companies get access to capital, helping with their strategic planning, being kind of like that SMB CFO already. And then I had a company that I was a part of that I helped build and scale and led to acquisition to with SAP. And then after I got done with that acquisition, I found myself at like a fork in the road in my career. There's 2 things that I realized. The first thing that I realized is I know what it takes to transform and scale finance teams. I've been doing that most of my career. So I know the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. And the second most important aspect of it was I felt like there needed to be a fresh perspective brought to finance. So that's why under 3 years ago, I started the business. I took the full leap of faith. Most of my career, I worked with some great CEOs, owners, and founders. So being around that entrepreneur, that growth, that scale, that kind of environment, it led me to ultimately make the leap of faith. And I think tying it back personally, my initials are CEO. So when I was young, my mom let me know what my initials meant. And that's been a catalyst throughout my entire life to be an entrepreneur and to ultimately start Fresh FP&A. So that's a little bit about my journey in starting Fresh FP&A a little under 3 years ago.
Super cool. I didn't know that about your mom with the initials.
Yeah.
That's funny. It gives me the chills a little bit. All right. So you take the leap of faith. First order of business is finding clients, right? I mean, how did you do that?
Yeah, so for me, when I first started the business, it wasn't all about like client acquisition, client acquisition, client acquisition. For me, I mean, I started my career at Ernst& Young. So I started my career in that public accounting, consultative, B2B, but we were working with publicly traded bigger companies. And when I started Fresh FP&A, for me, it was like really 3 things that we had to figure out. The first thing was who's the ideal client that we want to work with? And looking back over my background, it's always been like that small, medium, like mid-market kind of company. The second thing that we wanted to really identify was like, what are those services that we want to provide? And I know for me and my team globally, like we didn't want to be in bookkeeping. That's a very commoditized market. There's so many people that do it. It's a very like red ocean. We wanted to provide that strategic level CFO and that advisory service. And when I was building the business, our version of FP&A doesn't mean traditionally the financial planning and analysis. That's like technology can do that. I really wanted us to be the financial partners and advisors for the SMBs that we work with. And the third thing is most important for us was around impact. So that was really about what value, what impact that we want to bring across. So once we solidify that, actually the last company I was a part of, they became one of the first clients we brought over to Fresh FP&A. And for me, it was really sharpening that focus of who we want to work with, what's the services and value we want to provide, and what's the impact that we want to bring to SMB businesses. So that was kind of our game plan. Fast forward 3 years now, that's still the focus. When I look at our 3 primary lead gen avenues that we focus on, the first one is going to be client referrals. So this is an easy one. When you do a great job for clients, they refer other people to you. High success rate. I would call those like super hot leads that you can have. The second lead gen for us is going to be leveraging other fractional partners. So this could be fractional CMOs. This could be chief resource human resource officers, COOs, marketers, leveraging that ecosystem of other fractional partners that we can refer business to. And the third lead gen for us is going to be a very hyper personalized and focused outbound strategy. But this is the difference. Our outbound strategy is not about getting clients. You may look at that and be like, Chris, why would you have an outbound strategy not about getting clients? For me, one of the most important aspect of it is building trust. And part of building trust is we focus on nurturing relationships in our outbound strategies. So we're reaching out to those CEOs, business owners, and founders in those specific revenue ranges that we want to focus on, in those specific industries that we have subject matter expertise in, and we're giving them information that they need to know. So it's less about, hey, here's why you need us, and here's why we should be your fractional CFO. It's making them understand that, hey, we know your business, we know the pains and frustrations you deal with, and we have productive solutions and services to help you solve it. So that's our framework.
Yeah, no, super helpful. And I have a lot of questions, but I want to go back for a second. You talked about first, you're going to nail down your customer, the services that you add, all those things when you first start, right? Which is what pretty much everybody needs to do, but make it tangible for us. What does that actually look like in practice to say, how do you figure out who's your customer and what's your offer? That's one of the hardest things people struggle with.
Yeah, I give people advice on this all the time. And the tangible way to start is like working with those specific people, right? So for us, I knew software, technology, retail, e-commerce, pharma, and professional services across our entire portfolio of fractional CFOs. That's our area of expertise. So a great example, when you're thinking about identifying that client, I wasn't identifying manufacturing clients. Why? I don't have any expertise there. Like, how can I be a great CFO for you? Or how can my team be a great CFO function for you when we have no experience in doing that? So, a common mistake a lot of fractional CFOs or even just fractional people take is they take this like shotgun based approach. Is they're like, I work with everybody. And that's good for you to figure it out. But as a tangible way, I look back at it and say, where can we provide those services and that value and make that impact? And we can't make impacts that I have no industry experience in. That'll be doing my team a disservice, but most importantly, the client. And as I mentioned earlier, so much of that first client relationship is less about what you can do and more about is, can I trust this person? So when you're thinking about that tangible way of going through it, like look at your skills that you have, look at your experiences, look at the industries that you really loved, and tangibly go out and find those people. Here's a great way. I'll give everybody a practical tip that if you want to land that, go look at your network. Maybe find your top 5 people that you know in your network and say, hey, here's the kind of like, I want to provide this kind of service. Do you know any SMB CEOs, owners, and founders that are in these industries that potentially can use some of the services that we provide or dealing with some of the pains that we deal with, right? That's a great way of going, finding out, is saying, yep, this is the kind of client I want to work with. This is the kind of revenue size I want to work with. This is the kind of value I want to bring. And these are the kind of services that we could provide. It's really hard to like do that on paper versus going out there and getting an engagement for 30, 60 days where it's I call them POVs, where it's a proof of value, where you figure out likewise, it's like, hey, I know you got something I want to tackle. Let me see how I can work with you and how we work together, right? Don't let your first paid client be the reason that you don't start your business. That's a common mistake I see all the time is people are waiting for, I want to get paid first. The validation that you get on those 3 things that I mentioned is way more valuable than the money you'll get in 30 days on that.
Yeah, man, it takes a patience, right? And it takes you might go out there and you might find out that your current offer, what you thought was going to be your offer, is not actually real value.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people, if and when that happens, they're like, oh, I'm shit out of luck. I got to go find a full-time job, right? They just get like one rejection or one redirection and they're like done. And it's like, no, this is a process. This is experimentation. This is iteration over time to figure out what that value is, right? So it's like, it's about being patient and experimenting and approaching it with that mindset, not like, oh, I got to win a client. And if they say no, I'm done.
Yeah, man, you brought up a great point, man. Is like one of the things I've learned as a build my business, and this is me putting on my CEO hat, so taking my CFO hat off. You you have to learn, man. Like I've looked back over my entire like life, and that's been like expanding and like seeking failure. And I'll tell everybody, full transparency, I'm the CEO of Fresh FP&A, but I look to fail every day. Let me pause there because I know some people are going to go back and look at this and be like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
The reason why I look to fail is because when you seek failure, those are really the starting point of learning opportunities. So when you're building your fractional business and you're going into it and you're saying, man, I really failed at this client, or I don't really like doing this level of work, think about the learnings you're getting from that, right? And so many times people do analysis paralysis and go through read all the books, do all the frameworks, do all the articles, but there's nothing like getting out there and starting and meeting with clients and learning and doing the work and figuring out like, yep, this kind of client I don't want to work with, this kind of industry I have no experience and don't care about, this kind of value and services that we bring in doesn't really get me excited every day. Those are way more valuable as measuring sticks to get that understanding than any book you can read.
Yeah, it's such a valuable lesson that I hope people can really take away and just say, like, look, getting a no or rejection or a redirection away is a really positive thing. And it
Yes.
doesn't feel good. Like, I get that, right? We've all experienced it. It can feel like a slap in the face sometimes. But if we can see, I talk about in negotiation, if I don't get a no, that means I didn't ask for enough, right? So actually getting a no is the win here in a negotiation. And it's not that dissimilar in any of this kind of stuff,
Yep.
right? If I'm like,
Yep.
Chris, I want to, hire me, whatever. And you're like, no, then I can learn why you don't want to hire me and do better next time, right? Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So
And
anyway,
just to add to that,
yeah,
I love like no, because like a lot of and speaking from now, this is me putting my CFO hat on, right? Finance people and CFOs, we are so like if somebody tells us no, we're like, oh my God, like the world has shut down. But you got to change that mindset. Anytime I get clients to say no, I get clients and said they went with another business or they're that this all happens in business. But one of the key things I always ask them is saying, hey, appreciation feedback. What could we have done better? What were our shortcomings? What was something that the other company had that we didn't? I appreciate the directness and clarity. As we continue to get better, this feedback will be very important for us. So I'm curious to know from you, and can you help me understand what were some of those things, right? And that sounds like most people won't do that because now they're going to tell you everything that you've done wrong, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
some of the times you can uncover from that it's just a miscommunication. It's just, oh, what you thought we didn't have. Yeah, I didn't. You know what? Thank you for sharing that with me. I didn't do a good job of explaining this element of what we've done. So this is where it is. Does that give you a little bit more clarity? So like no is not actually the really final point because you can gather that additional information. Maybe it's, hey, I appreciate it, but you guys don't have this kind of product offering. Thank you for that, right? And if you get a couple of those no's and you keep track of that data and you say, man, I was on 10 client calls and we got 8 rejections and 8 no's because we don't have this particular service offering. Now that's something for you to think about, right?
right, right,
So no and failure and all that's just the starting point of, but most people stop there. Most people are like, oh, they told me no, there's nothing else I can take away from it. And I think this gets back to a lot of my personal background is like I'm the why person. I'm the curious person. It's like, well, why is this like that? I never took no as like the final place, right? Even with my mom, when I asked her, hey mom, can I go outside? And she's like, no. I'm like, well, why can't I go outside? It's nice outside. Like, what was well, Chris, I just said no. I know, mom, but like it's nice outside. Is it something I'm not doing right? Are you like mad at me? Are you having a bad day? I just want to get a little bit more clarity on why I can't do that. Like that, but there's also a balance, right? Like there's certain times you get it, and here's the other thing, if they don't provide you that feedback, that's okay too. If they're like, hey, I'm not comfortable, we just said no, we're moving in a different direction. Thank you. I appreciate the directness. I wish you luck in all future endeavors. If there's ever down the road that we can serve and be a partner or help you in anything, Here's my contact information and resources. Perfect way.
Yeah. I mean, that tone is going to take you a long way, right? It's like
Thanks.
the goodwill, no matter what happens, right?
Definitely.
So you mentioned something earlier, and you were talking about building trust, right? You said your
Yes.
outbound is about building trust. And so the question I have is, and you kind of hit on it, but I want to highlight it, is that as you build new relationships, it's all about trust and authority, and you do that in a certain way. What is the way that you do that? How do you get your foot in the door with new relationships and then kind of nurture those and build that trust?
Definitely, definitely. I would say like let me just start in breaking down what I think is a healthy relationship. And this goes to like personal relationships. This goes to professional relationships. This is like my whole philosophy around relationships. And great relationships, if you look at your great relationships that you have in business, that you have in your personal lives, to me, they're built on two key pillars: trust and competency. And when most CFOs and most fractional CFOs, what we're grained in, what we're experienced on, what the CPA teaches us, what business teaches us, what 2 decades of experience has taught me, is when we focus on building that relationship, typically CFOs, we focus on the competency. We want to be the smartest finance person. We want to be the smartest technology person. We want to feel like we're the smartest. That is absolutely the wrong place to go down if you're starting your fractional CFO business. You want to build trust first. And where we go about building trust with our CEOs, owners, and founders and our ideal clients that we work with is we know the pains, the frustrations, the opportunities and challenges that these CEOs, business owners at these growing SMBs are exactly dealing with, right? I want them to know is like, hey, I'm a finance person. I understand why cash burn and cash runway keeps you up at night. I understand that you're 3/4 of the year done and you have no outlook of what the next 6 months looks like in your business, right? I know the frustrations that you have of being able to juggle products, sales, marketing, and you're like, finance is low on your list. So where we go about building trust is we know those pains, frustrations, opportunities, and challenges that our customers are living in. And when you look at that, that creates an emotional connection. That creates is like, hey man, I know that you're walking into Q4 and you're looking at the next 6 months and you have no idea what your cash flow looks like. Or you have no ability to look at the growth that you've seen in your business and go back and look at it strategically. You have no idea how you're able to scale your finance organization to be a value partner. So we know that. And we know that because this is the experiences that we have. This is what we bring to the team. This is the proven framework and track record that we had in growing and scaling businesses. So a lot of that trust building for us is focused on we have the financial clarity and we can help you lead with financial confidence. So that's how we go about building trust. And that's why it's more of a nurturing, right? I tell you all that here's a secret power. Here's a golden nugget for everybody. If you want to establish yourself as a trusted value advisor, give people so much information that they're like, man, right? I can't believe Fresh FP&A. Chris got on a call with me 20 minutes and gave me so much great information for me to think about. And now I know if something comes up later on down the line, I know I can count on Chris, right? So I think part of my philosophy, and this is just who I am, like I love helping people, man. Like if I could help somebody figure out a problem and they find a solution or figure out a resource or anything that I can help people with, that's gonna come back in return. So I think, man, that's just been like I would say, not to be on brand, but that's just been my fresh way of looking at building trust, man, is the more people that I can help, the more value that I could give, the more resources, knowledge, and information that I can help share with people to help them be better, that's the win.
And when you reach out to new business owners and you're
Yeah.
wanting to share this information, I mean, is it, hey, like, let me send you my newsletter, let me send you our like Q4 report? Like, what are you actually sending them?
Yeah, it's newsletter documents, it's ebooks that we have written and worked on, it's video content that we have, it's posts that we have on LinkedIn, it's customer testimonials on the website. So I think this gets into like the marketing motion of like, how do you do that, right? Well, since we know the exact clients we want to work with, we know the exact services we want to provide, we know the exact value and impact we want to bring. Now you're speaking to that audience, right? So whether that's a LinkedIn post or that's a LinkedIn live or that's a ebook for them to download or that's a newsletter for them to join to give them insights or that's a report, that's how you can have your marketing strategy not only turn from like a nurturing and a thought perspective, but you're speaking exactly to the audience, right? We get clients that come in on that outbound, and a lot of times it's directly connecting with them and say, hey, here's our email list, or here's our report that we just did looking at like cash burner, cash runway. Here's something that we did with this software company that I think would be valuable for you. So it's constantly nurturing and being proactive in that, right? And a lot of times I want that CEO, business owner, and founder to learn about something, and they're like, "Oh, I remember hearing about that from Fresh FP&A, and I remember they gave me the information that I needed in the stance in the perspective I need it from." That's where I can go talk with them.
Yeah.
So that's where your marketing strategy aligns to kind of how that outreach is. And again, because our focus on outbound is less about lead acquisition and more about nurturing the relationship, our marketing collateral is 100% about nurturing that relationship, right? A great example, we'll be launching an ebook out in Q4 about the top, 4 things that every CEO business owner needs to know for 2025 in their planning process. So whether you have a planning process or not, if you're a CEO, owner, and founder, and you're like, I know I need to think about planning, well, here's the top 4 things you should be thinking about, right? So that's where the marketing, the development, the relationship building, it all fits together in an ecosystem.
What would you say? Because you're talking about all this collateral, this content, these
Yeah.
assets you build, right? And you're a small team, right? You're what, five? How many of you guys?
So us globally, it's about 40 of us across the globe.
Okay. All right. So 40 global, but how many people do you have dedicated on the marketing side?
Yeah, that's about 5 people.
Okay.
5 people on the marketing. Yep. So
So,
that's business, and that's marketing, business development, social, video, copyright, all that stuff.
okay. So the fractional executive, right? One person businesses.
Yes.
They're like, oh my God, I don't have the time, energy, money, resources to do this. Right. And yet we're saying you pretty much have to in some way.
Yes.
This day and age, you have to, right? You
Yep.
need something out there that legitimizes you, builds trust, all this stuff. What does that person do? Like, what do you advise them to do?
Okay, so if you're looking at all the different socials, and there's plenty of them, right? There's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. There's probably other ones out there, right? And then not only the social platforms, right? But you're also looking at the different kind of contents, blog posts, articles, LinkedIn, like static posts, video posts, right? So you take those numbers of socials and you take the number of content pieces and you just extrapolate that, it becomes an entire framework, right? But here's my golden nugget. If your core audience is speaking to CEOs, business owners, and founders, and you're focused on it from a B2B perspective. So you want to go talk with, maybe you're a fractional CMO. Let's just walk through a real life fact pattern. Say
Right.
you're a fractional CMO and you want to work with, CEOs, business owners, and founders of manufacturing companies, right? In industries, right? And you want to establish yourself as a subject matter expert because you have 20 years of experience in that, right? If there was one platform and one content piece that I would give you right now that can start everything, right, is LinkedIn. Absolutely. That's where your audience is going to live, right? I'm sorry, but CEOs, owners, and founders of $30 million businesses are not probably living on TikTok, right? They're not doing the TikTok dances, right? They're not out there doing that, right? So that's one, I would say, social element to focus on, right? Go out there, focus your strategy. All right, I'm going to show up on LinkedIn. Now you get down. Okay, if you're like Chris, I'm a marketer. Maybe I'll have a little bit of extroversion, but I want to identify. I want to maybe do a video once a week or something, right? You can do a video And here's where like I think AI becomes really helpful for you, right? Like you can go into ChatGPT, you can go in Perplexity, you can go in Claude, you can go in Gemini and say, hey, I want to develop a 30-day marketing strategy specifically on LinkedIn. And I'm a fractional CMO and I provide these services and I want to target this. Give me a schedule that I can do with easy to understand scripts that I can take this information and have a video, a 15-second video, right? And I can talk about something and that could be a place. Now you have a cadence. Now you have a process, right? You have 5 days worth of information that you can have, right? You can go quickly record that video on your laptop screen and have the script right in front of you to talk about. Now that video can now be turned into a blog post you can do from it. It can be turned into separate reels, right? If you do a 5-minute video, right? That's at least 15 different content pieces. At least 15 different content pieces. So if you got 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes a week, you set up that structure, record that video, and now you've got evergreen content to be able to have, right? And you may ask me like, Chris, I record the video. How do I go about editing it, right? Man, there are thousands of resources out there that you can meet with and say, I got this 15-minute video. I want you to structure it based on this, drop it up into these reels, make it this kind of style. Now you have a way of creating a content engine for yourself. If you're starting off by yourself, like straight rudimentary, I would start with LinkedIn. I would start with, video content because that resonates well with people, right? And video is a lot easier to translate to other content streams like blog posts, social posts, pictures. You can do all that stuff, right? From a video, and it can land and create so many different content pieces for you. So, and also you have to make it important for you, right? Like you may be looking back at this as like, Chris, man, that sounds exhausting, right? Like, how do I create yourself a framework and process to be able to do this, right? Like the only way you're going to scale your time in any aspect of your fractional business is you have to create scalable processes. One of the things I always challenge people on, whether you're 5 years in your fractional or you're thinking about starting it tomorrow, day one of starting your fractional business, you always, as the business owner, you need to be thinking about how does this process of what I'm doing right now scales? So if I get 10 more clients, is what I'm doing right now, can that scale to 10? If I get 50 more clients, can that scale? You have to always thinking about scale. So take that time, develop those frameworks, develop those processes, leverage those technologies that are already out there, right? Another one, I'll give another people a golden nugget. Canva. If you got ChatGPT, you got Canva, you've got everything you need to build a marketing motion. Everything right there. Those two solutions right there. Everything you need to build out a 30-day from scratch marketing plan and content creation plan for yourself.
How do you use Canva?
Canva was a tool that we started off with. I mean, it's images, it's videos, it's formats. You could I built the Fresh FP&A logo in Canva 3 years ago. I remember coming across this thing. I'll tell everybody my Canva story. I remember when I was getting to start the business, I had someone reach out to me and they were like, hey, Chris, a great tool, graphic design, a great tool to start from a social content perspective, use Canva. And I remember this entire logo, this entire framework, I remember spending an entire first day building this entire thing out in Canva. And I had everything I need there. Very user friendly, not complex, right? I'm a CFO. I'm not a graphic designer.
Right.
But I was able to turn my vision and what I have for the business, and I had all the tools and resources that I need to build out my brand mapping, my colors, my logo, my different formats and templates. And it's easy and clear to understand if you're not a marketer or a content person. So 2 tools that I would give people if you're day one starting on your journey, use some sort of generative AI tool like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, and Canva. Superpowers.
Yeah. I mean, for an inside look, right, I'm going to take this podcast episode. I'm going to take the transcript from Riverside, which we're using, right, to record this. I'm going to throw it into a Claude project. I already have the prompt ready to go. And I'm going to say, make me a blog post. And then I'm going to take that blog post and I'm going to throw it in my newsletter. My weekly newsletter is going to have it here. And then I'm going to send this to my Upwork editor. and I'm going to say, make me 8 video clips from this podcast episode. And then I'm going to take those and I'm going to put it into Claude. I'm going to turn those into written posts for LinkedIn. And then I'm going to take those and put them all on Twitter.
There it is, dude. That's literally it. The only place I would add to that too is like you just gave like the MVP to get started, right? You've got tools, right? You got generative AI, and you've got a great expert resource at a fraction of the cost to create those videos for you, right? So
Yeah.
I know you're thinking about investing. You're like, Chris, man, like, but that you're talking about minimum investment to get maximum output in everything. And you just waterfalled it. That one video piece is now transcribed in Riverside. You could drop that in Claude because you got the prompt ready. You got that. You got blog posts. You got content. You got video clips. You got, other tools out there that could put an avatar on top of your script. Now you got even videos that you could do that you don't even have to record videos yourself, right?
I haven't done that yet, but I know you can. Yeah.
Yeah, there's tools out there that use like you don't even have to be in the video. Load the script in there and you got short form content or longer form content ready for you. So
yeah.
My number one thing I want to give people on that, because I think that's a really important topic. Technology is how you scale. I say that whether you're a CFO, whether you're a CMO, whatever your role is and whatever business you're trying to create, your time is not going to scale as fast as technology helps you scale.
Yeah.
Technology and leverage those expert resources in the areas where you need, like video editing, right? You're not going to take time to edit a video, but I can go find a resource that I can pay, a fraction of the cost to go do that. And think about that. Your hour is going to be way more valuable than you spending that 6 hours to go edit the video yourself.
Right.
There's always that balance, man. You always have to find that balance.
Yeah. And just for people listening, the resource that you're mentioning, it could be a person, right? There's tons of people on Upwork. You can pay $100, $200, whatever, and chop up this video into smaller pieces. It's pretty good quality. And there are software sources like Opus, right? I can take this into Opus. It uses AI to cut it. It puts the subtitles on everything. It suggests all this, right? And that's like $15 a month or something. It's super cheap. So, and it's not perfect, right? The AI is not, but you have options as far as how you take a longer form video and chop it up. So
absolutely, man. And that's my point around that, man. Technology. Like you talked about a great point, right? I know we're giving a lot of golden nuggets to people, but listen, take a step back, pause, and set your plans, right? My great mentors say this, and I say this all the time, man. Plan the work and work the plan. That's it, man. That's literally it. Plan the work and work the plan.
Love it. Last question. I know you got to run in a minute. You talked earlier about CEO hat versus CFO hat, right? You are a CFO by training, all your experiences in finance, but now you're a CEO. You launch your own business. You run this company. Talk to me what you really mean by that and how fractionals need to be thinking about their business.
Man, this is I would say this is probably the number one takeaway that I've learned in building Fresh FP&A is I had to stop thinking like a CFO and start thinking like a CEO, right? And most of the time growing up in finance, man, we're very quantitative. We look at ROI, everything. We're focused on perfection. We want to be right. We want to have like the most information before we make a decision, right? All those things I just mentioned. That's traditionally the CFO hat. That's the hat I wear with my clients, right? But when I'm putting the CEO hat of growing the business, thinking about investing in resources, thinking about investing in new verticals, thinking about access to capital we need, partners we need to bring on, the whole focus you need to have with that is a lot of it is, man, you're going to go by your gut sometimes, man. You're going to figure these things out, right? You're going to learn it. But my thing about that CEO hat to put on is you have to think about your business as a business. Most businesses don't scale. They don't really get out of being lifestyle businesses or solo entrepreneur businesses is because the entire business revolves around just that one person. Like you're doing everything. You're the CFO, you're the legal, you're the marketing, you're the operations, you're scheduling your calendar, you're doing all these things, right? But when a CEO thinks about a business, they're thinking about, hey, what's the best use of my time? And where can I make investments and resources to bring on experts, bring in people that are better, smarter, way better than me, give them the landscape and let them be great, right? That is one of the biggest things. So for all those fractional CFOs or fractional professionals out there, you have to make sure you're thinking about how are you being a expert in whatever C-suite function that you're providing services to, but even more important, how are you making sure you're putting that CEO and that strategic level hat on in your business? I'll give somebody one last golden hack to do that, right? Every quarter, I like to spend time in thought. I spend a whole day. I go out, I go find a nice quiet place. I spend a day by myself and I'm just with my notebook, just spending my time in free thought. And I'm thinking about the business, not about the reports we need to give or the budgets we're focused on or the metrics for our clients. I'm spending that time to think strategically about my business. That is so important. So whether you do that monthly, you do that quarterly, semi-annually, take that time. Go disconnect and think about how you want to strategically build your business.
Yeah, love it. Thanks so much, Chris. Anything else? Or I guess, how do people find you if they're looking for finance help or just want to connect with you? Where do they find you?
Absolutely. If you're looking to learn more about Fresh FP&A, I highly recommend people go check out our website, www.freshfpa.com. Check us out there. There's a bunch of resources out there for you. Go to our resources page, plenty of information. If you want to connect with me, I'm all over LinkedIn. You can just type in Fresh CFO or Chris Ortega. Happy to connect, happy to help. I want to be a resource to help and support anyone in the efforts that they have and taking the leap of faith. So check us out at freshfpna.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Love it. Chris, thank you so much for your time, sharing the expertise. Amazing to have you on the podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
You got it.